All right. We're here 3 days in a row. 2, 4, 6,
Some of these people
8,
probably didn't
10,
show up
12.
last time.
No, this is good.
What's your name?
I'm Keith.
Keith, what's your name?
Chris.
Chris? Keith, Chris. I forgot yours already.
Tony.
Tony?
Josh.
Josh.
No, that's new Josh.
New Josh.
Two.
Josh, too.
Josh 2.
All right. Well, I'm leading today. So we'll see if this goes
It'll go well.
2.5 hours.
3.
It very well may.
You guys got to get your money's worth.
I'm taking Evan's lead and hammering energy drinks.
I'm just waiting for my thing to start up.
All right, well, I'm not gonna wait for you.
Okay.
All right, everybody read through domains 1 and 2 and ready for a quiz and all this stuff. Or what are we doing this week? Whatever we did. I don't even know. All right.
Whoa. Is that me?
Yes. Is that better? No, turn your mic off. There we go. Hey,
It's my first time not leading him over here.
he doesn't know. He's not used to that. All right,
I look kind of good.
so there's your questions.
Oh.
Pop that out. Oh, I should probably do that.
Hey, Brad, we
Not
can't
yet.
see the screen.
We
Yeah,
should.
there you go. Thank you.
Is it sharing the right screen? I can't see what it's sharing. Nope, that's the wrong screen.
Brad's first time.
It's tough. There we go. Let's try that.
Yeah, it looks like a slides. You got to click over there now. It's really weird. Nope, back now.
Huh.
There you go. All right.
I also forgot that mouse, when I move, it is sensitive and picks up vibrations. If you set something on the table, it flips it forward. All right, let's try this again. We're gonna turn it off. My mouse starts moving. He's done that before, where somebody left their mouse and
And while they're giving a
like
presentation.
during a quarterly meeting, he's like moving the mouse and clicking the slides, and they're like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out.
All right, class 3. Everybody's read all their stuff?
It's tax day. Get your taxes in.
Yay.
It's got to be postmarked today or file an extension.
Yeah, so exciting. All right. Last week, introduction, first domain, security risk management. That was an easy week. So everybody feel good after the Wednesday was really the first real class where we went through stuff. Anyone feel like overwhelmed after that? No. All right, we'll try harder. It's gonna go fast. So yeah, there we go. Can you believe it's been a week since the,
Any Virginia fans?
my dad went to UVA, so
Really?
there you go.
Anybody win any money on their bracket?
No.
No, we're all just a bunch of losers. Oh, well, some of us tried. I didn't even do it. I'm really bad at gambling, so I didn't
Right.
even try.
Then we had the snow apocalypse, the April blizzard 2 years in a row. So we had 2 people that showed up, 1 and 2. There he is. So, all right. Everybody read chapters 1 and 2 in the book. Ready to go. Did anybody preview chapter 3? Yes. All right.
That's really good.
Some
though.
real gluttons for punishment.
Yeah, it's really good though that
Yes.
for all the people that did read chapter 1 and 2. I mean, one of the big things is just staying on course, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of reading, a lot of memorization. You'll get a lot more of that today.
Right. As we go through it again, everything on the slides, these are really the important parts. Read the book. It's going to fill in the gaps behind, right, and give you the kind of the tribal knowledge, I guess, or the history behind it. But what you'll see is really the important parts to focus on. All right. Hosting, facilitating a study group. If you're interested in doing that, email mentorprogram@FRSecure.com. And we'll figure that out. We'll make sure Brandon gets that set up and look at setting up a Slack channel. So
Yeah,
it's
I
not a bad idea.
think we've gotten 4 or 5 people that were interested in being part of a study group. So let us know, and we'll try to put like people together. We have one in Finland, Norway,
Yeah,
something like
some
that.
people over in Europe that
It's hard to get that time thing right, but if you're interested, let us know and we'll try to put people together. We also have one volunteer for sure out in Washington, DC, somebody who's kind of a big fan of what we're doing here, that offered to help, to volunteer. He's got a lot of experience, so we might put him in charge of a mentor program. We're still trying to figure, or not a mentor program, but a study group.
Yeah.
Still trying to figure out how to get him
We'll figure it out.
involved.
So yeah, if you're interested, email us and we'll help facilitate all that stuff. All right, risk analysis. So it's going to be your assets. So again, one of the things to remember, assets, not just hardware, software, right? A lot of people just think hardware and software, my servers, my laptops, my workstations, what's installed on them. The big part of asset management that gets overlooked is information, your data. How are you protecting that? Where is that? Is it classified, right? So you need to know what the classification is of those and what the criticality of those different assets are to help put together and do your risk analysis. So the vulnerability or weakness is what's going to be exploited. What's the threat of that being exploited? So we talked about, I was talking about, what'd you do?
Me?
Why did you close my,
How did I close your
stop
thing?
sharing my webcam?
How do I do that?
I don't know. Evan.
Well, how can I possibly do that? I don't even know I'm doing that. Did I do it? Do I have like admin rights on your
Yeah,
thing?
you can stop the sharing.
Well, 'cause I'm looking up answers for questions for people.
You're just trying to throw me off to make me go longer. All right. So was it talking to you earlier? They were saying, you might have this vulnerability, critical vulnerability on a server, but it requires physical access to actually exploit. Well, yeah, it was in the podcast this morning. God, it was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that might go, oh wow, that's a huge risk. So there's a threat of this happening. But reality is, you have physical controls in place. It may not be quite as bad. What's the likelihood of it happening? Well, somebody has to break into your facility, get through multiple levels of physical security, and understand it. So when we look at this all together, your risk is the threat, what's going to happen, and the vulnerability, the likelihood and the impact of it happening. All right. So if it's an exploit, a critical exploit, or a critical vulnerability with a known exploit on your external web server, well, the likelihood goes way up. What's the impact? Well, it's just a web server. It doesn't really have anything. Maybe the impact is it's what your reputation of somebody defaces the website. So you have to take all those different pieces and understand that. Threat times vulnerability times impact. And for the exam, human life trumps everything. So as you're going through the questions, if they've got multiple answers, the multiple choice, and one of them is human life, that's your answer right away. Easy, right? All right. Understand the difference between qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative, it's opinion. Right? High, medium, low. Quantitative, dollars. There's a quantity to it. So it's a numerical, there's a value behind it. It's kind of the easy way I remembered it. Qualitative, it's the quality of it, who's doing the analysis. Quantitative, the quantity of something, the dollar amount around it. There's a risk analysis table. So you have likelihood and impact. So I can't read it, but rare, unlikely, possible. So it starts with the probability low to high and the impact low to high. So that's your risk based on that table.
Yeah, and that'd be an example of a qualitative risk analysis when you use a table like that.
Yeah, you're making a judgment call on it. All right, any questions on that?
In like a real world example, does a lot of that go qualitative? Because if you don't have a huge sample size for a data, to figure out if, the likelihood of an event, you're kind of gut feeling it, right? Or
the reality is every risk assessment will be qualitative to some degree, and most of them are pretty qualitative. because of that, there's a lack of data.
Right. Yeah, pure quantitative is almost impossible.
Nobody wants to share their dirty laundry, their loss
Right.
information.
All these are really important to understand and remember and know the oh my gosh,
Definitions.
and the calculations, formulas there.
Yeah, and that's why we're
Wow.
revisiting it. We kind of went through
Yeah.
this really quick last time. We want to,
Kind of really hammer this home. You will be asked to figure this out. So on the exam, what you're going to get is a paragraph that lists out a scenario that has asset value, exposure factors, single loss expectancy, and annual rate of occurrence, or some combination. They're not going to list it out nicely for you. You have to read through the paragraph and understand it. And then they'll give you, say, well, if the annualized loss expectancy is this, and you have to be able to fill in the gaps and know what that formula is and work your way backwards to tell them the right answer. And I think it's on one of the quizzes, but right. So if our asset value is $10 and single loss expectancy is 10, that's $100 exposure, right? 10 times $10. Obviously it would scale up. And that's your, annual rate of occurrence 10 times and an asset value of $10. So annualized loss expectancy is, that. So big thing, annualized loss expectancy, total cost of ownership, right? When we're looking at security, if the cost for remediation or the cost of fixing or addressing a vulnerability is higher than that loss, we don't want to do that. Right? Only if there's a positive return. So if we come out and say, gosh, our annualized loss expectancy is $20,000 a year. The cost of the software to fix it is $30,000 a year. Do we want to do that? No. Right? We wouldn't want to accept that risk. We don't want to spend more to prevent something from happening than what it would actually cost if that happened.
You do that over multiple years. Is there like a point where you're like, well, it's too far in the future, we can't?
Well, it's where your annual rate of occurrence, you're going to say, well, we think this has happened, right? And in the exam, they'll give you all this information. You won't have to guess at it. They'll tell you your annual rate of occurrence is 5 or whatever, and the asset value is this, and then so you just need to be able to fill in the blanks and just know your annualized loss expectancy or whichever way. Right? They're just going to give you a paragraph that has all the information in it. You have to reverse engineer that.
and in reality, you never really do this.
I don't think I've ever done it.
Yeah, I mean, but I can see how now people are starting to get a little more knowledgeable about security. So I think we're moving more towards this because a lot of the conversations I have with CISOs, they're starting to have to justify their budgets more. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start doing a little bit more of this, but yeah, I had to do it actually.
Yeah, I think the only time I've done it is to kind of justify and say, hey,
You do it in your brain, you do it in your
Yeah.
mind
I was
a
gonna say
lot.
it's more abstract than an actual.
yeah, I think the time is like, mobile device management is one I did it. We know, according to the studies, that the cost per loss record is this amount. If this happens once over this period of time, we have 100 mobile devices. How many get lost a year? You kind of justify it, but it was all, working documents, not ever for real reasons. All right, 4 choices for risk.
That's it.
That's it.
You have no other choice.
And
Force
so
the issue.
accept it. It is what it is. We're not doing anything about it. Either whatever the reason being, it costs too much to fix it. It just doesn't really pose that big of a risk to the organization. It's a very small risk. We're going to mitigate the risk. We're going to fix it, address it. We're going to transfer it. So insurance, colo or hosted provider instead of having your own data center, or avoiding it. We're just not going to do that thing that presents risk to us. Ignorance would be Well, we've accepted it if we're gonna ignore it. You've implicitly accepted that risk. That's it. Just know the 4 choices. Easy. See? Yeah. Lots of methodologies, processes there. So NIST 830. I think you'll just need to know that 830 is the risk management guide. So you don't need to know what's in it. They're just the 9 steps, high level, for the exam.
Yeah, and they make sense. I mean, functionally, right? I need to know the system first that I'm actually going to be assessing. And system doesn't have to be an individual system. It's essentially the scope of what I'm assessing.
What's the threat we're looking at? Have we identified what the vulnerability is? Our control, what's the likelihood? It's what we just talked about, right? What's the threat, vulnerability, control, likelihood, doing an impact analysis. So what's this gonna cost us if this happens? What's our risk? Coming up with recommendations, and then resulting, the documents of what we're gonna, documenting our risk decision. So just, I mean, it's good risk management process. So just memorize those 9 steps. NIST 830 is the risk management guide from NIST.
So at the end of the day, information security is all about managing risk. So if you master risk, you master understanding risk and manipulating risk and understanding how risk works, I think it makes you such a better security person, because security isn't, well, the standard says this, so I do that. It's managing risk. There are certain things that are stated in standards that don't make any sense at all in certain environments because there's either no risk or, I mean, there's just,
yeah.
So understand risk, master risk. For the exam, you need to know this, but also in your career, just master understanding risk all the time.
There you go. Everybody's ready. All right, we're done.
No, because it becomes like second nature.
It does.
If you do it all the time.
All right, quiz.
Did you guys, anybody take a look at the quiz?
Good.
No?
All right, if you did, you can't answer. You don't qualify. No. All right, which of the following would be an example of a policy statement? So policy statement, what are we looking at in a policy? Kind of what should we be doing? High level, here's what we should be doing. So we're looking at protecting PII by hardening servers, hardening Windows 7 by installing the pre-hardened OS image, creating a strong password, choosing the first letter of each word in a sentence, or downloading the CIS Windows benchmark. I'm gonna work my way from bottom to top. Downloading the CIS Windows benchmark and applying it, that would be more of a, probably gonna be doing a standard on that point, right? Because we're taking a published list of configuration and applying it. So that's not a policy. Strong password, you may create a strong password by choosing that. That's a guideline. Here's how you can do this.
May is the keyword.
May is the keyword. Yep. Hardening Windows 7 by installing a pre-hardened OS image. That's a procedure. That's a step-by-step instruction. So protect your PII by hardening the servers. That's your policy statement. How are we going to do it? Well, we're going to install the hardened Windows 7 image, and then we're going to apply the password or the CIS benchmark, and then we're going to do passwords. But the policy, protect PII by hardening your servers, is the answer. And I didn't look at these, so I could very well get these
This
wrong.
guy got it right.
Good. I should probably look at these in the future so I don't get them wrong.
Yeah, because I want to imagine, because like I'm standing here right next to you and I'd be like, seriously, man?
Yeah.
But you do want to ask that. Actually, just today, a guy with 20 plus years of information security experience wrote a process document and wanted my input on it. And so I read it, and I've never read one of his documents before, but 20 some odd years. And in that process document, he had a policy, guidelines, standard, and procedures.
It's so common to see that all in one.
You got to break those things out, right? So really understand, and for the exam too, policies are mandatory, high-level management statements, short, sweet, reference documents, absolutely. Guidelines are just guidance. You see words like may, should. Legal people like to put should in policy, but really they shouldn't, right? Should is guideline, right? Because I have every intention of whatever's in policy of enforcing what's in policy, right? So that's guidelines. And then standards are usually focused on a specific technology, also mandatory, procedures, step-by-step instructions. So just like he said, but you need to master that too, because
Yep.
that'll be on the exam. Plus seriously, if you look at these documents, like this is just dumb. You have to break it out because that's a structure that people understand. It also makes it, I can give you a procedure without having to read an entire document, with the policy, with the standard, with the guidelines.
Well, and then if you have a policy that has everything, if you change your procedure because you've changed software, now you have to get your policy reapproved, and that's always so much fun.
Yeah.
All right. Which of the following steps would be taken while conducting a qualitative risk analysis? Qualitative, complete.
See, there-
I know. All right, well.
Easy.
So qualitative, quality, right, it's opinion. So calculated asset value, no, because it's a dollar amount. Yeah, you already said it, complete the risk
This
analysis.
guy got it right.
Good job. All right, selling iPod. So there you go. See, this is a perfect example of what we will be looking at. So
Lots of words.
here's the tip. Read the question first. Don't read the paragraph explaining it, right? Read what they're looking for and then go read the block, because you'll get them where it's going to be a huge, like 2 or 3 paragraphs. And then you get down there and it's like, has nothing to do with the actual scenario that they've given. Don't waste your time. Read the question first, understand what they're looking for, and then come back up. So annual rate of occurrence in the above scenario. So annual rate of occurrence, how often does this happen every year? So denial of service attacks, $20,000 a week. DOS lowers sales by 40%. 7 DOS attacks on average per year. Okay, well, there you go. That's easy. But they give you all the things. So what they'll also do is then turn around and ask you same scenario, different question. Which, look at that, right there. So now we're going to do the same thing. What is the annualized loss expectancy
These people are all getting it right.
of iPods due to the DOS sale, right? So 7 per year. We're 20,000, 40%. Yeah, right.
One of the questions online too is, do you get to bring a calculator to the exam? The answer is no.
No, they'll give you a.
But they'll
like
be easy math. Sorry.
Right, and they'll give you something to write on, like a little eraser, whiteboard, like a little portable whiteboard. So, yes, 40% of 20,000 is 8,000 times 7 times 56,000. So.
Got smart people online.
Okay, DOS Mitigation Service. All right, so what is the DOS Mitigation Service a good investment? So we just found out, right? So now sometimes you won't get them in order, so you'll have to still calculate this. So we're gonna say, okay, DOS mitigation, well, what's the annualized loss expectancy? We just know it because it's 56. It's gonna be $10,000 a month to do this. So it's going to cost us $56,000 if we have this happen, or $120,000 if we buy the mitigation service. Well, that's not a good trade-off. Right? We're going to lose money to prevent something from happening. I'd rather just suck it up when it happens. All right, all this making sense?
Piece of cake. Sometimes I'll make it a little bit more interesting too, because they'll say that now your exposure factor changed from 80% to 20%. I don't know if they'll go that crazy on it, but that way you have to take the 120,000 then by 0.6, and figure all that stuff out. But
Again, but same thing. Just always read the question first, understand what they're asking. Don't assume anything, because they could very well change your, that 40% may become 60%. All right, so you just make sure you read once you understand what they're looking for, read the full scenario. Attacker sees a building protected by security guards and attacks a building next door with no guards. What control combination are the security guards? So physical, well, that's easy. They're definitely physical. That doesn't help. Compensating, well, they're not compensating for something else. Detective, we're not coming in after the fact. Deterrent or preventative? Well, So remember when we talked about this, two of the answers you're almost always going to be able to eliminate right away, right? So we know it's not compensating, we know it's not detective. Is it a deterrent or a preventative? We're deterring them, right? Yeah. That was an
It
easy
would have
one.
been preventative if the attacker had actually tried to attack and the guard stopped them. That would have been, that's the difference.
Yeah. And that's a little easier, but I wanted to talk through the reasoning there. All right. Which of the following proves an identity claim, who I am, and validates it? Yep, authentication. There you go. 7 for 7.
I'm ready to take the test.
I'm never taking that test again.
You never have to take the test again.
If your CPEs lag.
Yeah, if you let
So
it-
maintain your CPEs and you don't have to, you pay your fees and actually do ongoing education.
If you write a book, you have CPEs forever.
Unfortunately, you don't roll over though. You still have to do a minimum every year.
Yeah, you still have to do it, but I can enter them in forever.
Yeah, you have like 400.
Yeah.
All right, now on to the fun stuff. Asset security. Woo! No, all right. So it is easy in theory and very difficult in practice. Hardware and software assets, that's actually not, I don't think it's that hard. You just have to do it. People don't do it. It's the data asset portion that's the hard part that people struggle with. And you see that not happening. All right, agenda, we're gonna talk about classifying the data, ownership of the data, memory remnants, data destruction, and data security controls. So it's easy, short chapter. Thank you, Evan.
Well, the next one's really super long, so.
There's a
And
couple
you
that
get into that one too in this
Yeah.
class, because the next domain is, we have to break up into 3 domains. It used to be 3
classes.
separate domains.
Yeah.
But then they crunched it when they went from 10 to 8, they crunched it all together,
Consolidated
so now it's like one big, fat, huge domain.
It's a lot.
So
The
we're
amount
gonna
of-
start into that one
And the
tonight.
amount of information doesn't change, it's just how they classified it, so.
Right.
All right. Terms and definitions, again, anything you see in the orange, memorize these, understand and be able to tell exactly what they are and know it. If you don't know it, it's gonna make your life a lot more difficult. This is a lot of that you're gonna read through and memorize, and then as soon as the test is over, done. So RAM, random access memory. Yeah, you can read through this. I don't need to read off the definition. Remnants is what is left behind. So you delete a file from Windows, doesn't actually delete it, right? There's still remnants of it. It's still available on the hard drive until it's overwritten. Reference monitor. So that's going to be remember we talked about subjects and objects, active and passive. Reference monitor is what goes between and communicates between subjects and objects. ROM is read-only memory. So if you have a ROM and something reboots, it's still going to maintain its status. There's nothing that changes about it. Scoping, what portions of the standard? Yeah, so when we scope something, say, what are we looking at? Are we looking at the entire organization? Are we looking at sales function? Are we looking at marketing? Are we looking at project management? What are we scoping this down to? SSD, so you just need to know, solid state, combination of flash, the EEPROM and DRAM, we'll talk through those. And then tailoring, so, like I said, not all parts of a standard are gonna apply to everyone, so we're gonna tailor what we do, right? Same as close tailor, fit it to us. See, this is easy.
What's it?
Data classification.
Yeah.
All right. So at the top, very important, objects have labels, subjects have clearances. Those are very similar, but those are 2 giveaways when you're looking at the exam. If you remember, an object has a label, subject has a clearance. They'll give you a scenario and talk through it and then say it'll give it away if it has a label or a clearance. Because remember, some things could be either. That subject label and clearance is going to help. Executive Order 12.356. That's for government. Top secret, secret, and confidential. That's for government. Most of the time in public sector, you just see the 3 uses: confidential, internal use, or public. We want to keep it as simple as we can. It really is a very difficult thing to do in practice. And the more classifications we have, the more complexity we add. Complexity is the enemy of good security. So just understand what a classification you can have. Top secret, secret, confidential, confidential, internal, or public. And then security compartments, what we're talking about is it need to know and what the clearance is for it. So I don't know, it makes sense to me. You have a compartment that says who needs access to this, and then what the clearance level is to get to it.
We see this apply, and even though this is usually applying to government, we see this apply a lot in private sector. Because you mentioned, the hardest part of asset inventory, hardware, software, data. The hardest one is data. And the reason why data is so hard is because it's not in compartments. It's not in buckets. It's all over the place. So, we're often talking about network segmentation and isolation,
That's
really segmenting your data. Then you could make data classification a lot
easier.
easier.
Yeah, or if you did it
People don't
even
do it
within
that way.
SharePoint, right? You have a different site. All of our PHI is here. All of our credit card information is here. That's not what happens in reality.
So
I've got a file
any
share.
network people, isolate the network, right?
It's the easiest.
Seriously, been tired of it. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. What you need to have, formal approval and authorization to specific levels. Again, and when you're looking at this best practice, you don't have the same person approving and authorizing. You'd have segregation of duties around that. But if somebody needs access to that, there's a formal approval of it and then a formal authorization to actually have it happen. Like I said, it's not used in the private sector. It's really government. Standard Form 86, that's the clear top secret clearance. I don't think.
You have to fill out as a piece.
Yeah. I don't know. That's not on the exam though. Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it is.
Yeah, I think the point is that clearance actually is, they actually do vet.
The government actually does a fairly decent job around this. What you see is, because they are very rigid, right? It's the whole structure of it.
You've ever been on the receiving end of this? It's like somebody put you down so they come out and visit you, sit in your living room and
Oh yeah.
ask you a bunch of questions and all that good stuff.
Yeah. An acquaintance or somebody that
So I don't normally
was on the
like,
receiving end. As
I
a
don't normally
reference.
like people with suits showing up at my house.
And it's not short either.
No, so you open you walk up to the door and like, hey, what did I do? Oh, we're here. Oh, okay, you're here for somebody else. That's cool.
All right. What does that formal access approval look like? So it must be documented. Right? You don't want just things happening. Ticketing system is usually a really easy way to do that. Request should be approved by the owner, not the manager and custodian. So we'll talk through that a little bit more on the next slide about what those are. You can only approve a subject to access certain objects, and the subject must understand the rules for access. So everything needs to be auditable. What we're looking at really is saying we have a formal process. If you want access to something, here it is. You make a request. The owner approves that request. The custodian, typically IT, then allows that to go into place. They implement it. I'm drawing a blank. It's been a long day.
And one word association there. Anytime you see the word formal, think documented.
Mm-hmm.
Those two words go together.
All right, so 3 roles, owner, custodian, user. Very easy. Owner is who owns the data, who is responsible for making the decision. This is for classification purposes, access permission purposes, data retention purposes, the backup requirements. The data owner they own it. They are ultimately responsible for that. That's probably one of the hardest things, I think, to get started is nobody wants to take that on, right? So
You want to know who the data owner is, like you said before, just shut the system off.
Yep.
Whoever comes screaming first, that's probably your data owner.
yeah, custodian, that's who's responsible for implementing whatever the owner states. So again, typically IT, right? A lot of times people say, oh, backups, IT owns the whole process. No, ideally, your data owner says, I need this much back, or I can afford to lose this much data for this long. IT then would implement a solution that satisfies those requirements. Or this is confidential data, means it must be encrypted at rest with at least this level of encryption. It's now IT's responsibility to actually implement a solution that satisfies that. So, and then the user is who's actually accessing it. Yes.
Where's the system owner from?
The what?
System owner.
That's, yeah.
Same. It would see owner, custodian, or user. It would be the
Okay,
same.
so system and owner and data owners are the same.
Yeah, in practice, you'll find system owners, application owners, data owners. I mean, it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. But a system owner is just, they own that system. And so if you define the system as being maybe the server, but you have to define system owner first. Most organizations don't actually get that far though. They just stumble here.
Yeah, it stops it. Anybody owning anything. Yeah, the classification is confidential, internal, public. So it's very easy to document, very hard to implement. I think one of the very few places I see this done to any level of success is within law firms and their document management, or their, within for the cases where they have a requirement to be able to track that stuff. It's one of the few that you have owners. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of other places that have it.
Questions like a fool over here, right? So awesome.
Yeah, there's the flow. Classification defines what the sensitivity is. How are we going to protect it? How are we going to handle it? What are the storage requirements? And then any retention requirements. So you would say, I'm going to go through the slides that actually say that.
This is a sample policy. This is actually, at one time was our policy. I don't know if it's changed since then, but this is how we do it here.
We're about to reapprove them. So I should probably know that.
Yeah.
No, it looks very similar. So yeah, this is what an owner is responsible for. So this is why the policies are so important. Right? We start with that foundation. We've gotten a policy approved by executive management. Right? Now we can go back and force the issue a little bit. But just understand the data owner, their appropriate value classification, what are the requirements around retention, availability. Those are the owner's responsibility. Custodian, again, IT. They must protect the data. They must provide the level of service to satisfy the owner's classification. Pretty straightforward. And then the user is anybody that may interact with it. Now, notice person, organization, or entity that may interact with it. So it could be a service that's interacting with data, right? Scripts, batch files, scheduled tasks. Those would be data users, right? Where it's interacting with that. So you make sure when you're setting those up that they satisfy the requirements for that data being accessed. Any questions? All good? Everyone's still awake? Let's see, we're gonna get through this fast.
Oh yeah. Well, you still got a lot left to go.
I know. I'm just gonna skip it. Confidential. So we're classifying, we're saying, here is what we consider confidential, right? This is what we want to define so that data owners understand what they're doing. If I say that my data is confidential, what does that mean? So we're actually defining what it is. I don't think the classifications aren't, like the definitions of them aren't in the exam. So those are just kind of examples of what that's going to look like. Again, this is our sample policy. So what's the minimum requirements for confidential data? So this is all, again, really important for a data owner to be able to do their job. And then also for the custodian, right? Because now we've said, here's how we're defining what confidential data is. That's your data owner portion of this. And now custodian, your IT, how are we actually going to protect that information? And there's lots more. Some of this would also be around your users, right? Can't be posting it on public websites, things like that. There's lots of information there. It's good. How are we going to label it? How do people understand that it's confidential. This is a part that I think is probably even places that have started doing it really struggle with. Right? How do we label everything we've got? We haven't done anything forever. We've been around for 30 years and have never labeled anything. Well, you start somewhere. Any new document follows the standard, and then as it's accessed, the old stuff gets labeled.
Otherwise, how does a receiver of the information know what they're supposed
How
to
do
do
you,
with it?
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just an example of it, right? We want to make it very clear that this is confidential information. Internal data, by default, this would be your default classification. If it's not labeled, you have to assume it's internal, which means you can't post it anywhere. Yeah, minimum protections for internal, basically need to know, right? There's slight differences between this and confidential. Confidential is going to say must be stored in a locked drawer or office. Here it just must be in a closed container, right? Out of sight, out of mind, because it's internal. If it got out, it kind of probably caused maybe some embarrassment, but there's not a negative business impact associated with it. Confidential data got out, we've got a problem. PHI, PII, salaries, employee records, social security numbers, things like that.
This is like phone directories.
Yeah.
Internal.
Our internal
Planning
processes that
documents,
don't
maybe.
really have any real information just would be, yeah, embarrassing if it got out.
Yeah, I mean, still get you fired, but just kidding. That's security humor. You guys don't get me.
I mean, default level one has not been defined. So these are samples of it just to really understand and drive this home. Same thing. How are we going to label it? So this is a good policy, right? Explains everything top to bottom, but at a high level. It doesn't say how you need to be marking it. It just says we need to have it in bold, blue font, right corner. Well, how do we actually implement that? Well, that's not, that might change. We don't go to that level. There's a big procedure document that would say, in group policy, we're going to set this configuration and push it out. So by default, every new office document gets internal to satisfy the requirements. There's your procedure to support the policy. It may be multiple different options, right? If you have different software, you could do that way. Public. So anything that's already out there, websites, job descriptions, things like that. I think the best one I had was.
So it's public, it's not public?
I hope not.
Okay.
I've been saying it wrong for a long time. The best one I had was, well, we treat everything as confidential. We hear that all the time. Oh, really?
You know what they're really saying?
We don't do anything. I think the best one is if you protect diamonds, a stack of diamonds is a stack of coal with the same protections. Before long, you'll have very few diamonds and a lot of coal. You can't treat this data the same way, right? So, yeah, anything that's publicly available.
Now, going back to our definition real quick of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the one thing I'm really concerned about with public data is the integrity, right? Because people are so focused on confidentiality. So I still have to control public data, right? This policy is more written towards, confidentiality of the data. I still need to make sure that it's accurate, because you don't want, public, press releases and things like that are public to not state the truth.
Yeah.
So it's not like you don't protect it, you just protect it differently.
Yes, I free for all.
Yep.
Same thing, minimum protection requirements. Well, we don't have anything. It's public, right? We just want to verify the integrity. There's not the confidentiality portion. And then how it's labeled. All right, so here's your list of all the owners. Ultimately, there is a business data system owner. Right? At the end of the day, their core requirements or what their role is going to be very similar, right? So if it's a system owner, they have to classify the system. If it's a data owner, they have to classify the data. That's really what we're looking at. You need to, document and train the owners. Right? So having it in policy is important. And then having the segregation of duties to be able to say one person can't request, authorize, approve, and implement that change. I can't request being a domain admin, approve that request, and then make myself a domain admin.
And then be able to delete the logs.
Yeah.
Because you're domain admin.
Nobody would ever do that.
Never happens.
All right.
Actually, that's the attack sequence. The typical attack sequence is to identify a vulnerability, compromise the vulnerability, elevate your privileges,
And then hide.
and then if I haven't found something there, to pivot, right? Usually the attacker will put tools on there and then pivot to another system until I find it. Plant the back door so they can come back later, and then delete your logs. You
Just
know,
hide
so
their tracks.
the only thing that changes is some of the steps, in order, but it's always those same sort of sequences if they're an active attacker. Most attacks, though, are malware. They don't go to that extent, but.
You see it.
Mhm.
All right. Any questions on anything so far? No? I'm going fast. Still got like 60 slides to go. All right. So data controllers, know these two. Right? It's in orange. You got to remember it. Create and manage sensitive data within an organization. Processors manage data on behalf of data controllers. So this is where looking at like GDPR, right? Data controller is whose data it is. The processor is who's actually doing something with the data. Could be both and be the same, but those are the two things to think about. The data controller is who's managing that data. Processor is who's, creating and grabbing the data and then managing the data on behalf of the controller. So limitation, minimum amount necessary. GDPR is a big one on this. The California one has, California law has it as well. We want to only collect what we absolutely have to. When you're collecting data, ask yourself, why am I collecting it? Because to Evan saying on the podcast, why? Why am I collecting this information? Is there value to it? So something to keep in mind. So yeah, data controller, create and manage it. Processor, manage it on behalf. Questions? It seems so easy, doesn't it? The problem is in like 12 classes, you'll completely forgotten all of this stuff. All right. All right. No questions? All right. Oh boy. How about a joke? Oh, you don't have one on here. I got to come up with one. Let's see. All right. Did you hear, here we go. Oxygen and potassium went on a date? It went okay.
It's security camera, guys.
Come on. So I went and talked to a bunch of high school students last week and dropped that one and the fake spaghetti. And yeah, they're like, oh, it's like, well, that's how I know it's a good joke. I'm in. Yeah. All right. Seriously, any questions on any of this stuff? Everyone online?
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Lori's helping out.
Good. Thank you, Lori. All right. Now we get into the more the tedious part of this. So we're talking about data remnants. That's what's left behind. And these are the markers. All right, so when you delete a file, again, I'm going to use Windows as an example. When you delete it, does it actually delete that data? It deletes the pointer to it. That data still sits behind. That's that data remnants. It's not till you actually take some sort of an action to wipe it. So it's anything that's left behind before you take an active step to clear it. So understand what that is. Memory, really important. Fast, close, cache memory, fast, close to the CPU. That's expensive. Okay, so that's a good way to remember that. The closer it is to the CPU, the more expensive it is. The further away it is, the cheaper it gets. Yeah, the register file. So small storage used by CPU to store instructions. You can see that in the example up there. L1 cache, L2 cache. L1 is on the CPU. L2 is close to, it's connected, but it's not on the CPU. So you need to know the difference between L1, L2. L1 is on the CPU, so it's gonna be the fastest. L2 is gonna be connected to, but not on the CPU. So it's gonna step away, it's gonna be a little cheaper. It's the next step back, right? So the further we get from the CPU, the cheaper it'll get, the slower it'll get. Then static random access memory. Static being, it says it's static. Easy. All right, so let's talk about those. Memory RAM, random access, volatile. right? So that's what's actively running. If that system shuts down, it's lost, right? It's active as we're going. It's all the slots on the motherboard traditionally, right? Or it could be hardwired in.
Pulling. Okay. What about me?
All right, everyone knows what RAM is? Okay.
And you know, volatile means you move power, it's gone.
Yep.
But then sometimes some people like this split hairs because you, right? Because you can
So
freeze it and get
for
it
the purposes
about 8
of the
minutes.
exam, how's that? Is
Yeah,
that a good
because you
disclaimer?
can still attack it. But
You can. For the purposes of the exam.
yeah, exactly. Because yeah, just trying to head off those questions because sometimes
True,
people are
good
like,
point.
hey, well, what about this? Yes, that can happen, but yeah, for the exam, no.
And yeah, and again, everything we talk about is on the basis of the exam. It's in the book, not necessarily what we see in the real world. So remember that. So that's far away. It's kind of, that's the cheaper of that. So DRAM, dynamic random access, slower, cheaper, small capacitors, weak charge, it must be continually refreshed. I'm drawing a blank. What's an example of DRAM?
DRAM?
It's not the,
Just
just a chip?
yeah,
Okay.
just a chip, expensiver.
All right.
No,
No,
DRAM is more
no, that's
expensive.
the cheaper one.
SDRAM.
Okay, that's what I don't know.
These are just memory
There's
chips.
too many.
You can swap them. I'm not an A+ guy.
I know. It's been way too long. I just buy whatever fits my motherboard.
If you already go to IT, but
It's been a while. I know.
but for the exam, this is what you need to know.
DRAM, slow, cheap. SRAM, fast, expensive.
Because where we're going to get to after this is, remnants, what's left, after you delete something. These are all volatile.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about, so this is random access and the next is ROM, read only. So random access, it's gone, right? That's the most important thing. Gone when it's turned off. The two types, DRAM, yeah, slower, cheaper, man. It's been a long day. SRAM, fast and expensive. So just know the differences for that. ROM, that's going to be programmed. Right? That's where you do your firmware updates. It's your ROM, right? It has to be flashed to be changed. Don't change much. So you have 4 types of that. PROM, written once by the manufacturer. So once it's written, that's it.
Switch out the chip if you.
Yeah. So think of
it's
a,
burned in at the factory.
yeah,
Lots of chips, really. I mean, lots of IoT devices
Yeah,
have
IoT.
burned in.
you can't change it. Once it's done, it's done. EEPROM, erasable, PROM, PROM. So that's your flash with an ultraviolet light. I don't think I've ever seen an actual EEPROM.
Yeah. Well,
But EEPROM, ultraviolet light, right? And again, you don't need to know and be able to tell technical details of on any of these, what you see on here. If you know these definitions, this will be enough for the exam. Okay, so EEPROM, flashes with ultraviolet light. EEPROM is your electrical or electrically erasable memory. So that's your flashing your firmware, right? That's that more traditional that we're familiar with, right? Firmware updates on your computer, servers, where it's flashing that. That's your EEPROM. Yeah, programmable logic device, field programmable, EEPROM flash memory. So you could just change it. It's changeable.
And if you're a hardware guy, then this stuff is like really, really easy for you. If you're not a hardware person, you'll have to memorize this, unless you want to go the hardware route, and then, you want to get a lot deeper than all these things.
But again, I think the nice thing, just being able to tell the difference, and in a scenario in the exam, being able to understand and say, the device, it was flashed with ultraviolet light. What is that, EEPROM or EEPROM or PROM? What is it, right? Just knowing the definitions, being able to pick those out, what you see here is enough to pass that. It doesn't go into a huge amount of details. Flash memory, yeah, nightmare. It's very hard to control. You've seen how small some of those are now.
It's hard to wipe too, right? I mean, in
Mhm.
our old way, when
do
you're on a magnetic drive, wiping is
easy.
easy. In flash memory, it doesn't work the same way. The geometry's much, it's different. It's stored in, it's not stored magnetically on a platter like it is on a spinning hard drive. So you have to use a specific utility, usually.
A hammer.
Yeah, that works.
But yeah,
Physical destruction's, the way to go.
that's the one. I mean, otherwise you have to overwrite it and flip all the bits, and it's a mess. Yeah, flash memory is the type of the EEPROM, right? Because we're writing to it, we're flashing and changing it. Yeah, faster than other EEPROMs, slower than magnetic drives. All right, any questions? All right. I don't tell as many stories as Evan,
What am I doing?
right?
Answering questions.
Straight, right to the point. All right, data destruction. Understand what this is, right? So we talked about it already a little bit. Deleting the data it's not considered viable, right? We're just deleting the pointers. So it only removes that entry and marks it as unallocated. A lot of times being most of the time, it's available until it's actually overwritten, until that block is actually written to by the OS. So deleting a file just deletes the pointers. It doesn't actually clear anything out. Reformatting is only the old fat with a new fat. So you see in that where, I reformatted the drive. It's an 80 gig drive. I reformatted it with a 40 gig partition. That other 40 gig, whatever was on it, is still available. Right? It's a lot of times you can search that and actually find what's on there.
So that's how Cole recovers data?
Yeah,
What do I do?
the remnant. So if you format a drive, say it's an 80 gig drive, format 40 for the new partition, the other 40, the data's still going to be there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right.
Because all formatting does is just destroys
Remove
the
the-
table,
right.
the file table.
Think of that as your address book, right? Well, just because the address book is gone doesn't mean the houses are gone. They're still there. You just got to know where to look. So that data that's left over, that's your data remnants. So yeah, there's a lot of tools out there.
Clean
Forensic Wiki. I think that we'll talk about that. I'm gonna get ahead of myself. Yeah, Forensic Wiki. There's a lot of cool tools. Anybody? You don't need to know any of those for the exam, but if you're bored, if we're not giving you enough information, you can go out and read more.
Mhm.
All
Well,
right.
you never know what part of security you actually want to specialize in,
Sure.
right? I mean, it's such a broad topic. You may decide you're going to be a forensic investigator. That's kind of where you get your kicks. Well, then policy is going to probably be boring as heck for you. But if you want to be a CISO, policy might be the thing, policy and politics and training and awareness and all that stuff. Whereas forensics, I know enough to hire the right people to do those things, but it all depends on what you want to specialize in.
Well, and going back to that, even if you want to do forensic, you still have to understand policy. You have to still understand procedure. So you have to be able to document your stuff.
It's just different.
You can't get out of it.
Create.
Sorry.
Or you have to use it that says, hey, I deleted this.
Yeah,
Right.
that never happens. So overwriting, shredding, wiping. So overwriting, we're going to overwrite that data. So instead of just saying we're going to remove the pointer, we're going to write something to it to, the ones and zeros in a random sequence. Some will write all zeros, some will write all ones. But that's a good way to, I just got shocked. I need a new laptop. Yeah, each sector gets overwritten. I can't even read what those are. Those are different overwriting standards.
Yeah, those are just different.
Yeah, how many rounds? I think what you'll see, what DoD is 3, but outside of a lab where they recovered a portion, doing a one overwrite is pretty much gonna be secure.
Yeah, if you write every single sector on the hard drive, that's the geometry of a hard drive. Every single sector on the hard drive, if you overwrite it just once, it takes an electron microscope essentially to recover that data, which going back to that picture of that clean room, you have to,
Yeah.
I don't have an electron microscope, and most attackers don't. So we go crazy with some of this stuff, so you like the Gutman pass, was that 27 times
Yeah.
overwrite?
Who does?
27 times, really?
1 to 35.
1 to 35, so
Yeah,
If you overwrite it once, or physical destruction is the way to go.
Yeah. but document that it's been done, what the method was for overwrite, and track that. Because that's what's going to give you your defensibility. So anyway, just to understand what overwriting is, right? We're going to write over every single sector, whether it be all zeros, all one, random selection of those. We're just going to overwrite everything on that drive. Oh, there you go. One pass is enough. Yeah, DBAN, CBL data shredder, HDD kill disk. Yeah, the Cipher on Windows is really good. Done that before, where you have maybe a second drive, your D drive is hard drive. You want to wipe it, reformat it, and run Cipher, and it'll overwrite everything. It's built in. There's no additional tools to purchase or try to install. DBAN's a really good tool, although they throw out there that it's not guaranteed to satisfy requirements because it's their liability waiver there. But so I've never seen anything with it being recovered. So degaussing, understand that. Everyone's seen the monitor. Anybody young enough to not have an old CRT to hit the degauss and it gets all wavy? Me, I'm not.
You put on your CRT.
Yeah. Anybody has anyone ever used the degausser on the hard drives? Those are fun.
We used two of them. One had to have a remote because you had to stand like 30 feet back, and then the other does like a 60-second wipe.
We had, yeah, you throw them in there. They've got ones that you can put on the drive and just leave overnight. And then trying to get it off, you have to like twist it. You cannot pull those apart.
It's like really hot, and that will burn you.
Yeah. So just understand, degaussing is destroying the integrity of magnetic media. Does not work on flash. Understand that. So they may ask you in the exam, you have an SSD, what is the proper way to destroy any data remnants? And degaussing will be one of the options. It's not going to work. Physical destruction. Yeah, this is the most secure method. There's a multiple options there: incineration, pulverization, shredding, acid. I have not seen acid. I've seen the shredding. Anyone been to a destruction with the shredding? That's crazy.
You should probably go test a rifle.
So where I used to work, they would take them out to the range and they would leave them, the cool ones, on their desk, because you get the platters that kind of spray out as they hit it. Realistically, hammer to the spindle is going to be enough.
Yeah, it warps the platter.
That's all you need for that. Yeah, looking for National Association of Information Destruction certified vendor. Get a certificate of destruction, very important. We want to track that. That's your accountability, right? We need to be able to say, this hard drive with this serial number was destroyed on this date by this method by this person. So it's very important.
If something happened in the future, would that be part of the chain of custody then, that you destroyed it?
Yeah. So you can show and say, on this date, here's the list of all the hard drives we handed over to our vendor, and here's the certificate of destruction from the vendor.
Is that an example of transferring risk? Would you, having a pile of hard drives around, or
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
transferring risk? Would
So chain of custody for, all right, we gave this list of serial numbered hard drives to the vendor. They destroyed it. Here's our certificate of destruction. I don't think.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's probably some transfer risk, but the right way to do it would be to wipe the drive before when you take it out of commission, wipe it.
Yeah.
And then, because you're going to store it for some period of time, right? So there's going to be a gap between the time that you decommission a drive and the time that you actually physically destroy it. So the right way to do it would be to wipe it, store it, and then if you're going to collect a certain amount. And then I prefer, just personally, to have those hard drives destroyed on site. There's a lot of NAID, National Association of something, it's D.
Information destruction.
Yeah, and they drive trucks around and they have a little camera with their big, muncher things.
Yeah.
I prefer that. I don't like shipping drives. I don't like, shipping it to a destruction vendor, and I don't like them coming and taking it somewhere to destroy it. But, it's all a risk thing, and, whatever you decide to do, just make sure that you understand, all the risks involved with whatever you decide to do.
Yeah, and well, I don't know if it's
transfer.
A little bit, yeah, you're transferring the destruction portion of it to them versus you tracking it and saying, you know, I destroyed it with this method and Evan witnessed it. Thanks. All right, so what can we do? Shredding. Most of the time people think of paper, right? But we can shred hard drives. It's very cool to watch, except for the times when the shredders forget to clean out the paper they did before and the shredder catches on fire because it's got paper dust in there and electronics and they spark. Strip cut, right? Strips of it that can be recompiled. You've seen I'm sure everyone's seen pictures of that, like, you know, the investigators putting together the pieces to figure out what the paper was, right? Because it's just strips. Cross cut, think of that as like the diamond cut, right? So you're cutting two directions. So it makes it much more difficult to actually recompile that information for paper. Determined attacker could defeat it maybe. They've got enough time. It's easy to audit. I shredded this on this date. We put it in the bin. They came and picked it up. They'll give you the certificate. We've got that. The downside is most of the time we do assessments and they'll have the shred bin and the recycle bin next to each other. And so everyone puts stuff not knowing the difference. At this point, everybody that does shredding recycles that paper anyway. So just get rid of the recycling bin and put everything into shredding. Eliminate that risk. But yeah, if you don't do it correctly, it could be subject to dumpster diving.
Anybody ever done dumpster diving? We should do that. We should do a field trip.
Wait till it's warmer.
Huh?
No,
Wait till it's warmer.
not getting warmer.
No.
Smells worse. When it's warmer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Certification, accreditation. Similar, but very different. Okay, certification is that it's certain requirements have been met, right? So the owner says this is confidential information. So you need to have encryption. You have to do these, you know, back up to this time. You have to do these things for my data. So IT says, I certify that I have done those things. Accreditation is the owner accepting the certification. I am accrediting that IT actually did what they said they needed to do. So you're accepting that certification. So certification could be whatever it is, right? Let's talk about, we just talked about destruction. I'm certifying it. I'm going to shred all the hard drives. I've shredded it. I've got a certificate of destruction from the company. Here's my certification. Accreditation is the owner saying, I accept that you've actually done that. Okay, very similar, but very different as well. Sounds the same, very different. Anybody have any questions on the difference on those two? You will need to know the difference. All right.
Oh yeah, accreditation and certification will definitely need to know.
Yep. All right.
Piece of cake.
All right. PCI. We need to know that.
That was picky dis.
So only to the card data, card holder data, environment, CDE. Scope is where we talk about scope. What is in scope? What are we looking at here? We want to minimize the scope. We want to limit where our CDE is. Spam likely. So core principles, understand PCI DSS for credit cards. Understand the core principles, maintaining a secure network, protecting the cardholder data, have a vulnerability management program, access controls, monitor and test, and maintain information security policy. There wasn't a lot of detail on this. Just understand and know what PCI DSS is. You don't need to know beyond what those core principles are. You don't need to know what exactly does monitor and test the network require? What satisfies that requirement? What are the exact steps? You won't need to know to that level. What you'll need to know is that it's applying to a card data environment. We want to refine the scope down, and these are the core principles. So you might see an example on the test of some of these principles, and they'll say which is this for. So it might be, ability to maintain a secure network, access controls, and protecting, cardholder data would be the giveaway. But you might see some list of that, and then you'll need to know, oh, that's PCI. A lot of memorization. Octave, operational critical threat, vulnerability management, evaluation. Yeah, so Carnegie Mellon, Octave, 3 phases. Understand what those three phases. Staff knowledge, assets and threats, identify the vulnerabilities, and then do a risk analysis and risk mitigation strategy. They're gonna ask you, which of the following standard or framework was developed by Carnegie Mellon? Octave. That's what you're gonna need to know on this. There's a lot of really good information in it, but you don't need it for the exam. Just understand 3 phases, what those 3 phases are at a high level. And there you go. Memorize what's on the slide and you'll be in good shape. It sounds so easy when I say that.
I'm sorry, what? Okay,
Memorize what's on the slide, they'll be good.
yeah, memorize it.
There's not a lot, there's no details. That's the nice thing about it. There's a lot of information we're covering. Very shallow though, right? Mile wide, inch deep. So yeah, you'll just need to know Octave is by Carnegie Mellon.
Mile wide.
It's a risk management. What?
So if I eat more, I'll be a mile wide.
Here you go.
Good questions online.
That's good.
Am I supposed to read them out?
If you, do you have anything that would be valuable to the class?
It's like these guys keep talking. There's like so many of them. Yeah, later. You guys just have to trust me.
We should make Brandon go through these and post some of them.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, because
We
there
have
are some really
have
good
access to
relevant
them.
questions going on online, and I'm down here pounding on stuff. Most of the questions that they're asking though are not specifically on the test. They're asking about scenarios and certain things that are really outside of the scope of the test. Good for real world things, but so you're not missing anything from that perspective. But, so yeah, maybe we'll compile these questions and the answers and maybe share them there.
We've got them all. We've got access to that. I've got that in progress, but Brady wants me to actually do work during the day.
Who works? Not on Mondays.
Yeah. ISO standards 17799 and 2700. So, yeah, derived from the BS standard or the BS 7799.
Stands for British Standard.
Yes.
Okay, so wherever your mind is going,
I did that on purpose.
didn't stand for the other BS.
No. Yeah, British standard. So what they'll ask you is what standard was derived from the British standard 7799. It's the ISO 27701. That's what they're going to ask.
It's evolved a lot.
It was 17799, renamed to 2701 to go in line with that standard. So
There's been 2 versions of 27001, 2005 and 2013. So 2013 is the most current. I don't think there's a
there was a 2017, but it was only grammatical and minor updates.
Yeah.
Technically 3, but.
Is there another one after 2013? There might be a 2018 for all I know.
No, I think it was the 2017 that just had the small. I think that's what
But
it
anyway,
was.
you won't have to go there.
You won't need to know
will
that.
need to know that 27001 though did come from 7799 and 17799. That is the evolution.
Yep, and you'll need to know really those 4 that are on there. 2701 is the high level, the techniques. 2702 is how we're actually gonna implement those. So when you get audited or get ISO certified, it's against 2700.
So Peter says 27,001.
Wow. Oh, sorry.
He shouted the 1,000.
You're right.
Heavy.
It's 0102.
Just like,
He's right.
yeah, he is.
What was I saying? ISO certification is I always get this confused. It's against
27001, 27002 is the management techniques.
to actually
Yeah.
be, so it's like the policy, the procedure.
Yeah, if you ever hear, like 27001 is about the scope. Help me, ISMS.
Oh.
So Information Security Management System. You ever hear ISMS, you're talking ISO, probably.
So it's, yeah, but what should we be doing and how to do it? 27002. 27705 is their risk management, and then 27799 in health using 27002.
Never
Sorry.
seen a single hospital or
Mm-mm.
healthcare.
I don't think I've ever seen 27799 in the wild.
All these cost money too, by the way. So these are not open standards. You can't just go download them. You'd have to pay for them. So that does restrict its use a little bit.
And
Like
they are,
all the NIST standards, the SP, the special publications, those are all free. So
Yeah.
that does stop it a little bit.
so in the
Part of
book,
the IEEE.
IEEE is part of this. Yep.
in the book that you have, it's the 2005, the 2013 is the latest that's actually out there.
And there's the link. It's actually a really good standard. It's very business friendly. It's been one of my favorites, over the years.
Unless you're getting certified, that's a pain.
Yeah, certification, anything that, you're going to certify is a pain, but it's a good standard. So if you do have the extra cash and you want to read a good standard, it's a good one.
That's why you just get compliant, you don't get certified.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We follow the ISO standard.
Mhm.
All right, so that's what you need to know about ISO. Understand it's from BS 77 or 77.
that's the- that's-
really, I mean,
that's the
kind of
biggest thing,
joke
and
about
then-
it, but
And then knowing those numbers, knowing those four,
those four,
that's going to be really important for you.
what each one of those are, right? Because it'll ask you which is the ISO standard for.
Actually, they'll throw in the other one too. They'll throw in the one for business continuity, which I don't even remember what
I
it
don't
is,
know.
but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
That's one of those things you have to memorize for the test, and then after the test, you can sort of forget it. There will be one more. I can't remember the number.
I think, who's it? What, somebody was asked about looking it up, and I'm like, why am I going to memorize things I can look up in 30 seconds?
Does anybody remember the days before Google? Like when you had to troubleshoot things without Google?
No.
That was,
Yeah, life was a lot different than this. It was a lot of trial and error.
No books.
Well, sometimes you had the TechNet, right? I mean, if you're a
Yeah.
Microsoft shop, you went to the TechNet, which was a whole book full of CDs.
Yeah, Cisco had all the CDs.
Yeah. Those days are gone now.
all right, next is COBIT. You need to understand this. This is from ISACA. I don't think Information System Audit and Control Association. I think they would say ISACA. What you'll need to know, you won't need to know the version. That's just on there. 34 processes across 4 domains. So know what those 4 domains are: plan, organize, acquire, implement, deliver, support, monitor, evaluate. Very similar across each of these, right? Because at the end of the day, the fundamentals are going to be the same. It's just how they're defining them and how they're saying, here's how we're going to do it. But just understand if they say, which is the standard that's got 34 processes, or which of the standards has these domains in it, that it's COBIT.
COBIT, yeah.
COBIT.
I don't like COBIT too much because it's too IT heavy, too IT focused, but a lot of people like it.
Somebody was getting, was that you? Yeah, we were talking about they were getting audited against COBIT 4, which came out in 2005. And COBIT 5 came out in
We
like
were talking to them
2012 or
like 2 weeks
13.
ago.
Yeah.
27031 is disaster recovery. 27031.
Look it up. Boom. All right, ITIL, Information Technology Infrastructure Library. Huh?
Christian had it first. He's
Oh, yeah.
faster than me.
So for ITIL, understand it's for IT service management, IT. It's in the title. Yeah, service management, core guidance. It's, yeah, and understand service strategy, design, transition, operation, and then continual service improvement. You won't need to know what each of those stands for, what goes into it. I got my ITIL certification and promptly forgot all of it. But shoot. No, just kidding. Yeah, it's really around putting in a structure around your IT management processes. There is a lot of good in there, I think, but it is very IT. It's IT focused. It's the whole point of it. So that's what you'll need to know about ITIL. IT Service Management. Easy. Everyone's like glazing over.
And this probably won't be testable, but it's good to know, right? I mean, this is, if you're going to go somewhere for kind of current applicability, this is a good framework. It's not a standard,
Mm-hmm.
it's a framework of standards. So
There you
it's
go.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, man.
No, you're okay.
I'm gonna go get coffee.
You're gonna come back to a whole list of questions. You gotta stay up to date.
No, they're quiet now. They got all geeky on the hard drive stuff. Quiet
Yeah,
now.
so CSF, like I said, not really testable. 5 functions, identify.
Four.
Identify, detect, respond, and recover. So you look back at all the other ones, you know, they all have the same basic steps. So it's what is actually in the details of it. Frameworks and standards represented. It is voluntary. Just understand it's the cybersecurity framework, and it's a combination of frameworks and standards. 853 really is focused on government. And this is, you typically see this in government subcontractors, within the government itself, and then the government contractors, subcontractors. Very, I'd say very prescriptive, very rigid. CSF is more business friendly. 853 is very, here's what we have to do. FIPS 199, 200 goes and with the classification that you're in. I'm good. I'm good with my fancy FRSecure bottle.
You guys want anything?
All right. And then 860 is, oh,
Stupid. Incident
No.
management?
is that incident management? I should know that. I forgot that. All right.
Oh, no.
No, isn't that's,
What did I put 60 on there? I don't know, whatever. 39, incident management?
I don't know. Lori will look it up and tell us.
Yeah, always good at this.
So 199, 200 is the classification portion. Again, 853, government, subcontractors, you see that for them. 199, 200 is how you classify yourself as low, medium, or high risk. And then, is it 800? No, I'm not.
Just keep going.
Yeah, all right. I haven't put together the
I'm
slide.
very disappointed in myself right now.
I didn't approve them.
I know.
I did.
It
I
is.
just.
Do you want to
I
know?
didn't-
It's-
What's that?
Do you want to know? It's
Oh.
appendices to guide for mapping types of information and information systems to security categories.
Oh, there you go. It does go with that. Thank you. Thank you, Lori.
That was my next
You're
one.
Tip of
welcome.
my,
That totally threw me. I was not expecting your voice from above.
it's kind of like Lori though. Well, if you know Lori, she knows her stuff. It's cool.
All right. Okay, so rule of thumb, how do we protect our data? If you can't ensure or be assured of physical security, consider encryption. All right, so I know you talked about that with multiple data centers and requiring encryption. Well, we want to physically protect it. Then we can worry about, you know, if we can't physically protect it, how do we encrypt it? Data in transit, physical security. So again, router switches, your transmission, need to consider your encryption. Gosh, can't assure the physical security, should consider encryption. You guys
'Cause if you think
sense
about
a
it-
theme here?
Yeah, well, because you think about it, if you had even data in transit, if I had physical security of the media, right, and
It's
the
within your,
devices
it's only within the data center.
right, well, and people that I trust, then I wouldn't need to encrypt it.
Right.
Even, you know, but as soon as it leaves your premise, you don't have physical security of the media or the devices anymore. So that's why encryption, but encryption truly comes down to really physical access of the media. Even a man-in-the-middle attack, somebody has to tap in, somebody has to get in the middle of our conversation. So that's, you know, that's a mitigating control. You can, that's one of the reasons why I may not encrypt data that transfers, you know, on my internal network, because physical security is very solid and nobody's going to tap in kind of thing.
It adds overhead, adds
Yeah.
processing, latency.
What do you do for remote sites then?
Worth who?
Remote sites, if you have.
Well, remote sites, I
Yeah.
lose control of the physical media. As soon as it leaves my premise, then it's got to go, it's ISP's media. It goes through their routers. So that's why I would encrypt it. Yeah, they'll take care of me. But if I controlled the whole plant, the physical plant between sites, then I wouldn't.
Yeah, otherwise you do a site-to-site encryption.
But you
A tunnel.
don't have that, right?
Yeah.
It's more of a theoretical than it is a practical. But it's always the physical access to the media that matters. That's the whole point of this slide. I figured I'd better explain it because.
So you're talking, when you leave on the internet, you're doing a VPN, would an MPLS, a private network, be considered still having control of the data, even though CenturyLink is the one?
Would I have?
I've had
I don't
sites
trust
show.
CenturyLink with anything.
Yeah,
That's the first good move.
I've had MPLS nodes show up that weren't mine.
CenturyLink.
Nope.
I know a lot of things about CenturyLink that, I don't know, this thing's probably been recorded.
16 years there, I could tell you. stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I've called CenturyLink tech support and found out some things like, what? Really? Yeah.
Yeah, we had a node
crazy.
show up that we were like, what? Where did this come from? And it took, when we notified, it wasn't CenturyLink, I don't remember who it was. It took them like 3 weeks to remove it. When we blacklisted it and they couldn't get in, but it's still like.
No, we better get going. Sorry.
All right.
I'm taking this off. I'm gonna stop.
All right. All right, that's it. Chapter 3, Domain 2, done. Asset security.
This is where it gets really exciting. If you thought that was dry, just wait.
Oh, yeah, this one's.
Seriously, this is the most exciting. But
So asset security, very easy in theory, very hard in reality. All right, lots of things. Easy chapter. All right,
this is
so-
what we're covering tonight, yeah.
yeah. So you can see there's a lot of parts to this. We're not going to cover it all tonight. We're going to only cover the first 3. Again, it used to be 3 separate domains compressed into one, so the book may have it in those, but it doesn't matter. The information is all the same. Just what domain does it fall under? All right, so our terms and definitions. Understand all of these. If you don't understand them, let us know. I think these are all pretty straightforward. We will hit on these further through it. So
Yeah, this is in the entire domain, not just tonight's class.
Yeah.
Like asymmetric encryption, hash functions.
yeah, ugh.
Hypervisors, symmetric encryption, we'll get to those later.
Exactly.
He'll probably make me do those.
Does anybody? Anyway, all right. There's a lot of stuff in here that isn't.
Encryption is your friend.
Yeah. All right.
I would
So
encrypt my friends if I could.
make sure you understand all these definitions, and we will touch on them through the slides. So I'll go through them. All right. Subjects and objects. Oh, security. Oh.
See? You didn't even-
I just realized. All right. What are they allowed to do? Subject is your user, object is the resource. So we're saying, we'll go through all that. Understand, we're going to go through reading up, reading down, writing down. There's all kinds of stuff around who can read up, read down, star principle, strong star. And
You have to memorize that stuff.
you're going to have to know all of it, even though a lot of it is never, unless you're working in the government. You
But
probably
the
never
concepts,
see.
the concepts is what, you stay focused on. Like Bella Padula is about, protecting confidentiality, which would mean no read up and no write down. Right? So if you think about it in this structure, if I'm the subject and I have specific clearance, and Bella Padula is to protect confidentiality, I can't read up, right? Because that's another classification or clearance level that I don't have access to. And I can't write down, so I can't take what I had and put it down into a level below it. So if you think about, the concept fits, but nobody uses Bella Padula.
No, it is good. And I get why they teach it, right? It does teach those fundamentals so you understand what we're looking at and, understanding that how we got, here's where we're at now. All right, you will need to know these. Discretionary and mandatory. Discretionary access control. Means of restricting access to objects based on the identity of the subjects or groups to which they belong. So you can, keep getting buzzed. So a subject with access is capable of passing that permission to any other subject. So discretionary I can give access to others. Mandatory, it is enforced, right? So mandatory would be government, military. It's probably about the only time you would see that.
Yeah, the system administrator is the one who sets
And then it's, yeah.
everything. And, you know, if you have access to something, you don't get to assign it to somebody else.
So mandatory, think of it centrally managed, by one person, that system administrator. Discretionary, subject can access or grant access at their level. Right?
Yeah.
Just know the two differences. Those are both, government. I don't.
And we'll get to TCSec in a minute. That's the Orange Book part of the Rainbow series. You'll get that in a minute. So
It isn't used.
it's not used anymore, but the concept's still
Yes.
very much good.
So,
And Lori actually used to use, she might
Yeah.
even helped write those.
she's gonna yell at you for riding
No,
around.
she's-
No, okay.
I'm telling
All
you,
right,
incredible.
rule-based access control. Think ACLs, right? Routers and switches. We have specific rules. This thing can go to this place over these ports. Rule-based. It's defined by a system administrator. Role-based, think of this. This is more so role-based is non-discretionary. Active Directory, right? You have groups. Their permissions are based on their role, that group.
A lot of times rule-based too, you'll have, well, context-based, sometimes they'll call it. And those are, like time,
Yeah,
geolocation. So the rules are based on those things. So you'll see context-based in there too.
yeah. All right, so you will need to know and be able to tell the difference between discretionary, mandatory, rule-based, and role-based. So role-based is also known as non-discretionary access control. Super easy.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
You will have to know all of these and how to tell them apart.
That's not fun.
Everybody's super excited.
Because these aren't
These are,
practical really, other than you probably, no,
I think,
access
well-
control matrix maybe.
yeah. Again, all of these, there's good information in them. In reality, you don't see them. All right. State machine, capturing it to verify the security of the state. So we're going to say, here's what the configuration should be. This is what the permission should be. This is what it should look like. Does it match? Always secure.
The theory here is if something is in a secure state to begin with, and
It
all the
shouldn't change.
all the transforms, transitions are also secure or confirmed to be secure, then the end result would also still be secure. That's what a lot of this.
Yeah, so we know we have a secure state. We're gonna take basically a snapshot, compare it to that secure state. Are we at the same place? Yeah. All right, so Bell LaPadula.
Yes.
Whew. Confidentiality. Everything in orange you have to know. It is focused on confidentiality. So it said, Evan said, no read up. So if you have top secret clearance, I can read down. If I'm top secret, I could read any of those. But I can't read up, right? I can't write down because then I lose that. I could accidentally put top secret information into confidential. So you can't write down. And if you're lower level, you can't read what's above you, but you can write up. Seriously, that's not
You're
good.
getting shocked?
Yeah. Time for a new laptop. I don't know.
Maybe I wired this thing.
It was that
Every time you say something I don't like, I
that
shock you.
bang, right? Just keep me awake. 2 rules you need to understand. Simple security is the no read up. The star security is no write down. So you'll need to know the difference between those two. You don't need to know a lot of the detail behind it, but you need to know if you see Bell LaPadula, it's confidentiality, what the difference is between simple security and the star security.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the 2 object label rules. Strong tranquility, they're not changing while the system is on operation. And then weak tranquility, it's not going to conflict with the security, with the defined properties. This is the dry part. You just have to memorize this stuff. There's not a super exciting way to go through this. So the nice thing is, I think what you'll see on these slides, this is really going to be
Here's a good
what you need.
Here's a good tip from online, and I think it's good to help memorize it. So STAR always means special privilege, so that's right? It would be a special privilege. So STAR means right, and simple. So the simple rule always the least, right? Simple. It's just simple, which would be read. So that might be one way to help you, associate the two. So STAR is right, simple is read.
That's good.
So good tip.
Lattice-based, very complex environments. So what you'll have is for your relationship that's an upper and lower. So you can see here, if it's top secret nuclear, top secret crypto, you could have an upper level, you have a secret level. Nuclear and crypto could go either way, right? So it's going to be right, it's a lattice, right? When we look at where that's at. Least upper bound, greatest lower bound. So again, it's that what's the lowest level that I can have above, like what's the most privilege I can have, and what's the least or the most lowest.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
It's just boundaries, upper.
So
and lower.
I can go up to this level and down to this level. I'm going to be somewhere in between these two levels.
Yep. And these are always the most difficult things for us to teach because we don't do this. I mean, the principles apply, but remembering the specifics of a lot of these things.
Well, the nuclear type of stuff, this is a very complex area. No, I've never used this in day-to-day work. And that's the hard part.
Right.
BIBA, so these are ones that I struggled with, right? Because it's based after, or developed after Bella Padula. So Bella Padula is confidentiality, BIBA is integrity.
And the way to remember BIBA and integrity is BIBA's the one with the I in it.
Yep.
Bella.
Yeah.
So
where were you when I was, no, you actually had it. I just
I
didn't know
figured
about
Scott gave a good one. I wanted to give a good one.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
somebody likes it.
So yeah, BIBA is integrity. So it's important. Same thing, 2 primary rules. That's a good, simple, no read down, right? Simple read, and STAR being no write up. So yeah, that's a really good.
And it's one of the best tips I've heard in a long time. So start with the special, meaning the privilege, right? Yep. It's just the opposite of you can think about it, right? If I'm at that secret clearance and data integrity is a big deal for me, you don't want me writing up to another, another level, but you don't care if I read up, right? Because I'm not talking about protecting confidentiality. It's about,
the integrity,
manipulating data above me. So it makes sense to flip the script, with Bella Padula and BIBA.
So you can remember those.
Any questions? This isn't, it gets more exciting. Trust me. Like encryption's fun. We're gonna have fun in encryption. Trust me. This, memorize it, forget it when you're done.
Yeah, this is a dry section. A lot of this is just memorize. Use what's on the slides. Memorize it. Read through the book. Gives a lot of history. There's probably gonna be things in there that you go, oh, okay. What you need to know is on these slides. Clark Wilson, real world integrity.
I got real world integrity.
So the big things here, 2 primary, well-formed transactions, enforce control over the application, and then separation of duties. So you need to be authorized. It's set in a certain way, right? I want to make this change. Somebody else is actually going to implement that change. I'm not going to be able to make changes that are not validated. I can't authorize and modify the data at the same time. Yeah. Anything on Clark Wilson? It's not exciting.
It's exciting. No, wait, it's not exciting. Okay, no.
Yeah, so we're in the box, authorized access, modification in an authorized manner. This is all it is. I wish there was more to talk about on this one. This is not. All right, information flow. So this is that discrete compartments. Classification need to know. So you have the different bubbles, right? Network segments. Who has, what's the classification? Who has a need to know that information? Subject clearance has to dominate the object classification. So I have to have a higher clearance than that classification. So if I'm secret, I can't see top secret. If I'm top secret, I can see secret. And the security profile must contain one of the categories listed in the object label, which enforcers need to know. So just because I have top secret, maybe it's, top secret site A, and I only have access to top secret site B, I won't be able to see it. Or if I'm top secret and it's secret site B, I can't, right? Does that make sense? Everyone's just glazing over at this point.
What? Still typing questions.
I'm just saying things about you.
Okay.
Brewer Nash, Chinese wall. Think about this. This is supposed to be for conflicts of interest, right? So internal segmentation, you'd see this in
Financial.
yeah, financial, like a law firm, or internal audit, and maybe firewalled off. Chinese wall, that's where you're going to see that difference there. So I can't make changes that I have, I'm invested in, for lack of a better phrase there. So yeah, Brewer Nash, Chinese wall, conflict of interest. Boom.
Yep, that's about all you need to remember for that one.
Non-interference, man. So addresses the inference attack. So where you could potentially put together multiple pieces by themselves, but if I pick out, look at how healthcare, I might get an account number. That's nothing by itself. I might get a medical diagnosis. That's nothing by itself. And I might get, but together, right? The account number has a name associated with it. The medical record, the diagnosis has an account number. I put those things together. I can infer. I can start putting those things together and understanding. So non-interference is to try and be able to avoid that. I think a good example for this one would be, shoot, I'm trying to think of what it was. Or like if you're doing product ordering. So if I want to say I can only ship so much of a certain product at a time, and two companies are shipping the same, if I try to ship it at the same time as Evan and it kicks me back, I can assume that Evan has already shipped that amount. Right? So you want to avoid being able to infer the state of the system based on the results.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of, in social engineering attacks, we'll do a lot of inference sort of attacks, but in, physical nature where we'll observe and try to infer, certain patterns, who comes and goes and when they go and things like that. So we won't know the details of what's happening inside the environment, but we'll be able to infer things based on the comings and goings, things like that. But a lot of this is side channel stuff,
Yeah.
So it's not directly at the system itself. You're not inferring things. Well, maybe. I suppose you could, try, certain logins or send a certain attack traffic and see what you can infer. But yeah, it's meant to prevent all those types of attacks. Covert channel attacks are ones that
are hidden.
Yeah.
All right, take grant. Hey, guess what? You can do two things. You can take access or you can grant access, right? That's what it is. What you want to know, I want to be able to take, grant, create, or remove access. Know what each of those stands for, what the definition is.
They're pretty self-explanatory.
It's really, I know, I feel bad like I'm glossing over it. Literally, if you know what's on this slide and memorize it, you're set. I can take the rights, I can grant rights, I can create a new object, or I can remove rules from it. That's it. I know, you guys are like, this isn't so hard. Again,
it's the memorization that's hard.
There's so much.
It's not the logic that's hard. It's remembering.
Yeah.
And remembering Clark Wilson versus.
Or Biba and Bella Padula and what's no write up, what's no write down, and all.
Logically, it's all pretty simple.
Access control. So matrix OSs. yeah, that's going to be kind of your group policy, right? It's an easy way to look at that file shares within a Windows OS. The subject is your user and then your what they have access to on each of those files, what level of access they have.
Just columns and rows.
Easy.
There you go. How about that one?
Whew. So what you need to know for Zachman framework for enterprise architecture, that it's 6 frameworks for providing it. What, how, who, what, how, where, who, when, and why. It seems like.
Well, that's the table of the framework. So,
Yeah.
if you memorize the top part, that top row.
Yeah, that's all you need. What is your data? How is the function? Where is your network? Who is people? When is the time? And why? Motivation.
Yeah.
6 frameworks for
I honestly
providing it.
don't. I've never seen it done. Never used it, but there it is.
Probably, yeah. You could get a tech question.
Sure, somebody
on it.
did because somebody made it.
Yeah. And it was used enough to get in the book.
Yep.
Graham Denning, basic rights. So in terms of a command, so you will need to memorize those different R1 through R8. Because I remember, well, I would assume it's still the same. I did get questions on which of the following is, give you a sample of a paragraph, say which one of these did that satisfy. And then it might be R3 is grant access, and then R3 is delete access. So you actually do need to know those 8 rules.
Yeah, this is one of the most difficult kind of sections of the CISSP. So once we get through this, you can exhale a little bit. The reason why it's so difficult is it's really hard to give you practical examples of where we've applied this, or where we've used this, or where we've managed this, or encountered it.
It's just rote memorization. That's all this is. Just memorize what's on the slides.
Yeah, and you'll have to, that's why, you don't try to memorize it the first pass, right? It'll get overwhelming. As soon as we get through this, we'll come back. You'll see this sprinkled into other domains as we go, and we'll see this in practice exams. So don't worry about it right now. Just, gut through it and you're fine.
Yeah. That's why he gave this one to me. It's a painful one.
It's fun to watch him. Like,
I
have no practical examples for.
I feel bad. Like, this is how we do it, but nobody does it.
This is a little more practical modes of operation.
Yeah. No, there's 4 modes. Dedicated. 1 classification for all. Well, see, everything's classified.
Yep, and it's only 1 classification.
Only 1. Again, subject has to have a clearance equal or greater than the system, the label, right? So my label is secret. I have to be top secret.
Or secret.
Or secret, right? So, secret or top secret. Thank you. And then understand that it has to be, you have to have appropriate clearance, formal approval, and need to know.
So just because you have access to the dedicated system doesn't mean you need to know. You'd also have to demonstrate that.
Yeah.
Very formal, very secure.
So system high, equal to or greater than the highest object level. So you notice we've taken off that second bullet point. At that point, if it's a secret system and I have a top secret, I can see everything in it. It's not necessarily need to know. They're assuming that you're saying, all right, if you're above that level at or above it, you have that need to know. Compartmented, you need to have a system-wide need to, or have a formal need to access all the data in a compartment. So, and understand you have to have those 4 things. So you have to have an NDA for all information on the system, clearance for all information on the system, formal access approval for some objects, and then valid need to know for some. So you've got a compartment, I've signed an NDA, and I've got clearance for everything, but I only need some of it.
3 and 4 go together.
Yeah, and then multi-level. So systems containing objects of varying levels, labels, and then varying clearances. So you've got that, right? You might have the compartments of some secret, some top secret, some, we'll use that one, and then who can actually access it. So you might have, public, internal, or
Well, yeah,
so whatever it is.
These are the ones
You're gonna
that
have a mixture of it.
that we're typically used to, right? You could enforce multi-level in a Windows environment. You couldn't enforce these other ones.
No.
in
Yeah,
a
this is
Windows
probably the most
environment.
common.
And this is our first mention of the reference monitor. The reference monitor is the mediation. It enforces the policy and it mediation. So it's in Windows, it's the kernel, really. It just mediates all access to all objects, in the system between subjects and objects. That's the reference monitor. You'll hear that over and over again, but that's the first time we mentioned it.
Yep. So it's going to check what the subject is, what their permissions are, or their clearance, and then check the object and validate clearance and then need to know.
Yeah, if the reference monitor is insecure, the whole system is insecure. That was our problem with NT. The kernel was insecure. You would never be able to make it secure.
All right. So
Here we go.
TCSec, Orange Book. You will need to know the Orange Book by the National Computer Security Center. 1983 is part of the Rainbow series. So on that one, you will need to know probably the date, I think, and then the Orange Book and what it's for. One of the
series,
the Rainbow series. What is the Rainbow series about? Protection profile. There's the Rainbow series. So the next part is what you'll really need to understand, and it goes along with the rest of what we've covered. It's super exciting.
So what you do is you'd evaluate a system, the security of a system, to see if, what level of data you could essentially store.
So what you can do, what you'll need to know is, and you will need to know the difference and what each level of these covers. So we're starting at D, saying we are minimal. This is just the bare minimum. Discretionary, if it's discretionary C1, C2, and you will need to understand, and I'll be honest, I don't know the definition of these off the top of my head because it's from 1983. And that was,
we don't apply it.
Yeah, but they will ask and say, which of these is the highest, and in the book itself, it does go into more detail. You will need to be able to tell the difference between these levels.
Most of us have never seen systems that are in the B or A category, unless you're working in a government or a highly specialized, highly secure environment. Windows NT, when this was kind of more, it was still sort of applicable in some ways. The most secure you could harden the crap out of Windows NT, and the most you could get was a C2, and that was only if you didn't connect it to a network. So
it was a lot of good.
Right?
Yeah. Air gapped.
What would financials fall under?
It depends on the system. So it's entirely about the system design. So everything, I would say mandatory protection and verified protection are specialized operating systems, specialized hardware, specialized everything, built for a specific purpose, typically.
Yeah. And again, in the exam, they're going to give you a scenario and ask which level does it represent. At least I had that.
Yeah.
So it may have changed by now, but.
Or they might take something here from the TCSec, because we'll go through TSSec, whatever, Orange Book. Take something from the Orange Book and then take something from ITSec, which is a different standard. And they'll give you some scenario and ask you which one applies to which. You know what I mean? So you'll need to know that C2 is an Orange Book standard. And then you'll see the other ones that's a different standard.
Yeah.
So like, EALs, things like that, which we're going to get to here in a minute.
So Trusted Network, Red Book. So it's Orange Book being systems, Red Book being networks. Same thing. Just know the difference in those two.
The concepts are still important.
Yeah.
Right? I want to put a highly secure system in my environment. I don't want just any system.
True. So ITSec, Europe, evaluation criteria, functional effectiveness, and correctness. So what you'll want to see here is understand and know kind of how those map together and say, all right, I've got an E0 being inadequate, E6 being the top secure, right? So what are the levels top to bottom? Which way do they go?
And that breakdown is the mapping to it.
Yeah.
So like an FB3 E6 is an A1 in the TC-SEC Orange Book. Those are the actual mappings. And this will be another one of those things where, it'll be good to read it in the book to put it into context a little bit for you, but then this will be a nice reference, for your memorization when you're preparing for the test.
Again, yeah, all this, they're not going to go into what does E2, right? Like, it's going to be high level. Again, yeah, super exciting. The common criteria, so testing and security of products. We need to know those terms. What's the target of evaluation? What are we testing against? What's the system or the application? The security target, so the documentation around the targeted evaluation. What are the protection profiles? What are the requirements that we're testing against? And what are the objectives around that? And then your evaluation assurance level. How does it score out? So what you'll want to know is those 4 terms, and then understand what exactly the 7 levels are. So what's the difference between, they're fairly self-explanatory, but yeah, if I see in an example what it would be, they're going to give you that paragraph that says, here's what they've done for this testing. What level is it? Is it methodically designed, tested, and reviewed, or tested and checked? Now, to me, I think it makes sense, right? If it's tested and checked, we've got a test plan, and we're checking it, but we're not actually reviewing that. So it'll say they've developed a plan, this people tested it, and then we had QA review the test results. Formally verified, designed, and tested. I don't think I've seen that ever. So if you were looking at this most of the time, you're probably maybe at best getting to EAL 5 or 6, and that's pretty mature. So again, I know it sounds like a lot. We're kind of glossing over. You just have to memorize this stuff and understand. If you see EAL, it's common criteria. You see the other thing, what is each of those different areas? What are we talking about?
Is EAL the only one that's going to state that it's tested?
Yeah. Yep. So last version, 2009. I don't think you need to know that. Just what you'll need to know is how to be able to tell the difference between these different levels. Or if they give you an example that says the system is at an EAL 4, the question might be which of these are they being tested against? Is it the red book? Is it the common criteria? Well, EAL, common criteria.
You're almost through the driest part. We'll get more applicable.
Thank goodness. And in 2 hours.
Well,
Right on time.
there was one question, it's making me question the applicability of, the CISSP.
So,
And I get it. It's, this is the part. But you noticed, in, what day is today?
Monday.
Like Wednesday's class, in Monday's class, there was a lot more applicability and we could talk a lot more about this is how you apply it. That's what most of the CISSP is. This is the block. You have to just fight through this part.
This is the worst.
So when you talk about encryption, and how to apply it, when to apply it, stuff like that, if you talk about physical security, which will be a part of this too,
Yep.
it gets much more applicable. And you'll notice that, especially physical security, that's the one part where when you walk into stores, you'll start noticing things that you didn't notice before. Like everywhere I look, I'm always looking at bollards, I'm always looking at camera surveillance, I'm always looking at different blocks. So it does get a lot more applicable. If you fight through this part, don't worry about it.
Yeah, this is painful, but again, it's a lot of it is, and even in encryption, you'll see a lot of historical stuff. It's building the foundation. How did we get to where we're at? Where do these things play in? Why are we doing the things we're doing today?
Yep.
So there is value to understanding it, right? If you didn't know about Red Book and just said, oh, well, here's where we're at. How did we get here? What did we learn? What didn't work?
And what is it now, MTSC? Who does the labs now?
Oh, I don't know.
But there are testing labs still, but most people don't reference the testing.
All right, so that's it. We get to continue on this from Thursday. I don't know, it'll be,
Wednesday.
or what, sorry, when,
Did I have the wrong date?
you do, I read it off of there, because it was Tuesday and Thursday last year.
No, it's Wednesday this time.
So Wednesday, not Thursday, don't pay attention to that. Reread 1 through 3, come back with any questions. We'll start the class again, kind of hit a high level review on Wednesday, do the quiz. This is probably, yeah, this is one of the tougher sections. So start reading, keep going. If you have any questions, come back. And then next Monday, we have a break. So we'll skip that class or skip that day so you can get a chance to catch up, not burn out. It's a lot of information. We're going to go through this today in terms of just memorization and then continuing on to next week, the next class on Wednesday.
Mhm.
All right, any questions? Anybody?
Turkey?
All right,
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions. This is the dry part. Don't worry about it.
it is
You're not going to
painful.
get it the first pass anyway, so.
No,
We'll come back Wednesday and we'll have a lot more fun. I mean, I'll do something fun, something stupid. That's what I do.
all right. Thank you everyone online.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Did I stop it or you stop it?
Yeah.